Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining. My name is Josh Rollin. I'm a customer support manager here at Meetup. Today, we're joined by special guests Andy Huang, founder of Urban Adventure Club, and Nimrod Kramer, who's the CEO and co founder of Daily.dev. They're going to be demonstrating some of the tools that come with Meetup Pro and discussing how they leverage Pro features to reach their business goals. We're also going to answer some common questions about Pro, share success stories, and walk through useful tips and tricks. So really excited to get started here today, but before we get started, I just want to go over the guidelines and the agenda for the event. So event guidelines here, this event will be recorded, but you will not appear in the video. It's only me and the guest speakers who will be appearing in the video. The audio is also muted automatically, so you only hear myself and the other guest speakers. The chat for the event will be turned off eventually, but if you have any questions, we have a Q&A feature you'll see at the bottom of your screen. So click that button, submit your questions, and we're going to answer as many of them as we can at the end of the event. We also do have closed captioning available for the event. That's at the bottom of your screen as well. You'll see the live transcription icon. You can select your preference for closed captioning there. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's our agenda. For today's event, we're going to be doing a brief introduction. The speakers, Andy and Nimrod, are going to tell us a little bit about themselves. Then we're going to do a demonstration of Meetup Pro. They're going to lead us through how they use their Pro tools and how they've built their business using those tools. And after that, we'll have that Q&A section. So like I said, submit your questions in that Q&A as we're going through the event, and we'll answer that in the last 15 minutes of the call. So with that, let's meet our guest speakers here today. Andy, if you could go first, just introducing yourself, telling us about yourself, and then Nimrod will go after you.
Sure. Thanks, Josh, for the introduction. Great to see everyone. So excited to see so many people from all over the country and the world. I'm Andy, so I'm the founder of Urban Adventure Club. We are the #1 rated and most active social club in the San Francisco Bay Area. We currently host over 70 events every month, this in person and virtual, a little less this month than previously. We have over 400 dues paying members and 20 plus event organizers and volunteers. So I started the club as a meetup group in 2015, and since then have grown it into my full-time business with over $25,000 in monthly revenue. So my goal for the club is to expand it all across California and eventually all across the US, with the goal of creating communities for friendship and social activities wherever they're needed. And a fun story I like to tell is actually met my wife in the club. So we met on a ski trip I hosted back in 2015. And we recently welcomed our son Archer to the world. He's our first lifetime member of Urban Adventure Club. And when I'm not busy running the company and hosting events, I love to snowboard in Tahoe, play some tennis, cook, and also travel when I can.
All right. Thank you for that, Andy. Nimrod, go right ahead.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Josh, for hosting and inviting me. And Andy, nice to meet you as well. Pleasure to be here. My name is Nimrod Kramer. I'm based in Israel, so here it's like pretty late at night, but I managed to get some rest and drink a lot of coffee to be here, hopefully at my best. So I run a company called Daily.dev, which is a community-driven startup that's helping software developers from all over the world to stay up to date on the latest tech news. And right now our community has around 120,000 developers that are active worldwide. And we're big fans of meetup.com for hosting our monthly events, which later on I'll share a little bit more about what we do and how we do it. And personally, I'm passionate about a lot of stuff, but particularly I really love table tennis. I obviously like coffee, that's my fuel. And I really love Japan, which is one of my biggest passions over the past several years. And I look forward for this event and I hope you all enjoy it.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Thanks for introing yourself. And thank you again, Andy. So we're going to get into demonstrations soon where these two wonderful organizers are going to show us about how they use Meetup Pro. But before that, I just want to ask some questions of you both. I'm going to ask the same question of each of you. We'll go Andy first and then Nimrod answer it. Just a few questions. This will only take a few minutes and then we'll get right into those demos. So in your introductions, I think we heard a little bit about each of your communities and they're intertwined with your businesses as well. So there's a lot of overlap. But can you just share what are each of your meetup communities like? What do your events look like? Like give us some examples. And when did you start using Meetup to organize?
Sure. So I first started Meetup in 2015 with one group in San Francisco. The idea back then was to create a community for people to meet new people, make new friends. And what I saw at that point were a lot of the groups were very events focused. So some were very much about hiking or very much about dining. And so I wanted to create a group that was more varied. So we had lots of different events. And the idea was mainly to bring people together who had the same interest, but also who wanted to try new things. So that was the beginning.
Yeah. And for us, we're way more fresh into the platform than Andy. So we're here just closing our first year of organizing meetups through meetup.com. And for us, it's been a great way to enrich our community with a lot of content that's really helpful and gets them inspired to do new stuff, create new side projects, etc. So when it comes to the developer community, they really appreciate stuff that are non-promotional. So like generally speaking, when you talk about developer marketing, it's everything but marketing. So a lot of it comes in the form of just giving back. So we're trying to leverage the size and engagement we have from the community to bring awesome speakers and to generally kind of create a concept that we call it like TED for developers. And this is how we use Meetup as of today.
Yeah, I love having you both here to kind of juxtapose you against each other because it's really cool. You're holding events for very different markets and types of people. Andy, you've been around through a lot of changes at Meetup and you've managed to have this sustained growth. And Nimrod, of course, you've had like awesome growth in your first year and are doing really well, but I'm sure you'll have a lot more ahead of you. So very cool. Thank you for telling us about your communities. What made you choose Meetup in the first place?
It was fairly easy because at that point, Meetup was really the only platform for people who are new to a certain cities to look for social events and look for ways to meet people. So it was easy to piggyback off of that. It made acquiring new members quite easy. And also people were willing to give new groups a shot. So when I started a new group and posted new events, people were willing to give it a try. Yeah, there weren't really any other great options besides Meetup at that point.
Thanks.
So in our case, we did try to evaluate several platforms, and and when we started with a different platform and migrated to meetup.com after just 1 month. And the biggest factor was the ability to create audience that compounds from one event to the next, which made like a huge difference when you're trying to build a community that's around monthly meetups. So if every month you have to like bring everyone together and it doesn't compound month over month. So that's just the deal breaker. So within 1 month, like just after one event, we decided to move to meetup.com.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for sharing. We always love hearing how people ended up choosing Meetup. So I know both of you have used Meetup now to help grow your businesses. So what specific business goals would you say Meetup has helped you achieve?
For me, the main goal is customer acquisition. So for the club, we rely on Meetup as a source of new members because people who join Meetup find out about our group and then through that, then join the club. We still host plenty of events on Meetup and to really build our reach. And so for our future expansion plans, we'll still continue to use Meetup to expand into new markets.
Very interesting. And what about you, Nimrod?
So for us, it's a combination of two very serious things and one not so serious. So the two serious things are, it helps us to build our brand equity, which is kind of straightforward. Second thing is that it helps us generate trust in front of our developer community. And the third one is just we like to have fun and fool around. So once a month, that's a great frequency for us to just create an event and engage with awesome people worldwide.
Yeah, Great. I love all of that. Thanks for sharing again. That's all the questions I have for you, and I'm really excited to get into this next segment. So I think we should just go for it. So for our audience here, we're going to have demonstrations from both of these organizers. Really, they told us how they use Meetup, and we said, okay, can you show everybody else how you use it and how you utilize these tools that come with Meetup Pro? So Nimrod's going to go first. I believe he's going to demonstrate what the Pro dashboard looks like. There's a members tab of the Pro dashboard he's going to show us, an analytics tab as well. And then he also uses something called sponsors, which you can put on your group page. So Nimrod, go ahead, share your screen. The floor is yours.
So can you see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
All right, great. So thank you everyone again for joining. So what I'm going to tell you today is the story behind the monthly dev, which is the name of our meetup group that we run for daily.dev. And as I mentioned, this is somewhat of a concept that we came up with during the pandemic. So it all started by us wanting to engage with our online community of developers. And we thought that the best way to do it would be to create events. But then we kind of like started looking around and asking ourselves questions whether we thought that there is an inflation of events, right? So all of a sudden, all of the meetup organizers moved online in mid and late 2020. And we found ourselves getting a lot of invitations. So we wanted to do online events, but we were not sure like what would be the best way to do it. So our first idea was just to ask our community. So we started interviewing people and learning about their experiences in going to and attending online events during the pandemic. And what we learned is that there are several problems and there are several opportunities. So like one of the things was that there were a lot of events that were not that like quality events, that people were not that professional in organizing online events. So you kind of booked it. If you're an attendee, you booked the time, you made sure that everything is clear. You came to the event and then you were more or less disappointed by the content quality. The second type of events were like super high quality, but they were not consistent. So there was an event here, an event there, and it was really hard to follow. So we realized that consistency is another very important factor. And the third type of event were events that were both high quality and consistent. The big challenge there was that most of those events were hosted by big tech brands. No need to mention any names, but those tech brands usually host events that are around their technology and around their products. And those events tend to be a little bit biased. So we thought that there's a sweet spot here that we can tap into, which would be to create an online event, which is consistent. It's going to be once a month. And we're going to try to bring world-class speakers and leverage the community that we already had on our platform on daily.dev. And through that, bring world-class speakers that are going to talk about everything except daily.dev. So they're going to present interesting projects and idea that they run. They're going to present different challenges and engineering ventures that they operate, and they're going to talk about career and a lot of stuff. And the primary goal is just to enrich, to inspire, and to spark creativity in our community. And below you can see some of the comments that we got through the time. So by now we ran 12 events in this series called the Monthly Dev, with a little over 28,000 participants. This is the first year that we run it, and hopefully now we're starting the second year. It's going to be even bigger. And one last thing that we always add to our events is swag. So we like to do a lot of giveaways. It usually works really well. Has nothing to do though with what I'm going to show you about meetup.com. We just thought to mention that it's always nice to give some gifts if that's possible. Then like the way we use the platform is to first announce the events, right? And organize and bring all the members in one place so that whoever wants to be engaged in this kind of series, they would have a proper place where all the information can be easily accessed. So it all starts from, the basic Meetup Pro features of creating events. I do it in our team. So I usually just copy a past event and I modify the stuff. And one of the cool features that we're using in Meetup Pro is this kind of sponsors stuff. So we don't really have sponsors. We just run our own group, but we do got a lot of requests from people to see recorded events. So we decided, hey, it's going to be cool to put a link here. It's just, free space where we can use for our own needs. So that was a really cool hack that a lot of people in our community really, really appreciate, because since the events are like global, it's not that they're targeted into a specific time zone. So it's inevitable that not everyone will be able to join. So the recorded part is like really, really important, and putting it out there really helped. Then the place where Meetup Pro really put the magic is, in my opinion, is in the Meetup Pro dashboard. So here you can see some of the stats that we have in our group, like the total members and the growth, and you can track the performance. So if you're doing various marketing activities and stuff to grow your group, you want to be well aware of how and what kind of impact it created on your group. So this kind of dashboard really helps. In our case, since we run mostly online events, right now we have only one group, which is based in San Francisco. I just chose it randomly because I thought San Francisco is cool and it's one of my favorite cities in the States. So I just picked it there. But the magic really happens when I want to take my event marketing outside of the platform and to use and to leverage other marketing tools that are very powerful, that are in the market, based on the community that I created on top of meetup.com. So the way to do it is to go to the members tab, and over there you would have an option to export the members and the contact list. And this is a really powerful tool. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to click that members button due to privacy concerns. So there's some private information, and since it's recorded, so I want to be mindful of our members' privacy. But if you go here, you're able to export a CSV file with all the contacts, and that's really powerful. So what we're doing is once a month, we go here, we export the contacts, and then we're starting to promote our events externally. So let's imagine that I exported our contact lists. So once a month, I go to our email marketing tool, which is a different software called SendGrid. I'm going to show it in a second. I upload our contacts, and then I start scheduling marketing emails that would announce people that the event is happening. It's explaining what the event is about. And I also set a bunch of reminders so that I make sure that not only they RSVP, but also that they attend the event. So I want to really, really quickly show you how one of these email marketing emails looks like. So if we go here on SendGrid, so I already prepared one example. So this is from our 10th event, which was hosted in October. And we had speakers coming from amazing companies, from Google, from Stack Overflow, from Startbook, and all sort of stuff. And what you see here is an email that we're sending 2 days before the event, just to make sure that people are aware. And if they didn't have the chance to sign up, so we remind them that there is a sign up process. But usually, if I want to be more general, the process works 14 days before the event, we announce it, and we let people the opportunity to sign up. Then after about 10 to 12 days, depending on the month and depending on how busy we are, we're sending a reminder email, which is what you see here, which is essentially sent to the members of the group that did not sign up. So that's another very powerful tool of Meetup Pro, that you're able to then extract the members that already RSVP'd to your meetup and only remind people who did not sign up. So that's really, really powerful to increase the conversion rates. And then we have a last email that is being sent 10 minutes before the event, just announcing that this thing is happening. with much less detail, just call to action button. Hey, we're starting, and this is where we see a lot of people joining us. So this is it really briefly. I think that I talked about most of the points, and we're gonna have a Q&A session, I think, after this talk. So I'd love to answer any question, and I'd love to elaborate about some stuff that we're doing. I try to keep my things like as simple as possible for this talk, but if there's anything you would like me to elaborate in, so I'm gonna keep enough time for it in the Q&A session. So I hope that it was helpful, and I leave the room back to Josh to take it from here, and good luck, Andy, with his demo.
That was awesome. Thank you, Nimrod. Few things I just want to call out from you there. First of all, let me brag a little bit about Nimrod's group. The reason we have him on today is because he does such an incredible job hosting these events. And I think that context you gave, Nimrod, of how you picked, what types of events to host and the cadence with which you do them and how you give out free swag, all those little things go into making you an incredible organizer. And Nimrod gets hundreds of people at each event he hosts, and that is exactly why. So I want to point out these tools we give with Meetup Pro, they don't just automatically, get you more members by themselves. They're tools that you can leverage to make your great events get more attention and really engage your members. And Nimrod, thank you again for giving a peek behind the curtain there at how you do it. I think it's super amazing that our audience here today got to see what the Pro Dashboard looks like. They're going to get to see more with Andy. So I won't take up too much time right now. I just want to, right before we get to Andy's demo, I want to clarify something because we get a lot of questions about this. So Nimrod mentioned he exports the email addresses of his members. He puts them in SendGrid, and that's how he contacts them. That's one of our most talked about features with Meetup Pro, and a lot of people upgrade for that reason. So I want to clarify, when you upgrade to Meetup Pro, you can start to gather the email addresses of members in your groups. And the way that happens is that when you host an event after upgrading to Meetup Pro and members RSVP to that event, they are informed that their email address will be shared with you. So their email addresses aren't automatically shared with you when you upgrade. You have to host events, and that's how you'll start gathering that email list. Obviously, Nimrod's done a great job hosting tons of well-attended events, so he's gathered a really good email list now. So we'll answer more of those types of questions if people have questions about that feature after Andy's demo. But I just wanted to put that in. I know we're moving fast here and covering a lot of different tools, but we'll also give y'all, the audience, some links to information about these tools, how you can do a free trial so you can check it out yourself after Andy's demo here. So with that, thanks for bearing with me. Andy, let's go ahead. I'm going to give the floor to you, and let's see what your network's all about.
Sure. I'll share my screen now. Also, yeah, I wanted to repeat the point that Josh just made, that to be a successful organizer, it's all about the little things that you do for your members to build that trust, to make them feel special, to give them a reason to attend your events. And I think the things that Nimrod mentioned are all amazing things that maybe not everyone can do, but you can at least do a few of those to really build that connection between you and your members. So that's kind of how I started with Urban Adventure Club. I started it in 2015, which is the Meetup group and a few events. So this is the page for my group. So currently we're at 4,500 members, and it will be much higher, but actually I do trim members occasionally just to make sure I have more of the active members on the list. This is a peek at our calendar for just the month of January. Like I said, we normally on a pre-pandemic month, we would do 70 plus events. And so this is a little less than what we normally do, but it's still quite a bit. You can see that there are almost events every single day. And then most weekends, we have 2 to 3 events on every weekend. And so this really gives our members a lot of variety, a lot of options to join events. And also you can focus on the events that you personally enjoy, meet the people who have the same passions or have the same interests, and make friends that way. And we also do a lot of things outside of Meetup, like using Messenger or using other communication tools to bring people together. So, if to be a successful Meetup organizer, you don't only have to rely on Meetup. Like, Nimrod uses SendGrid. So there are other tools you can use to make your group even more vibrant, even more alive. So to kind of move on to some of the pro dashboard tools I use. So quickly, it just gives me an overview of the groups that I have. So these are the 4 groups that currently are under the Urban Adventure Club
Andy, I'm going to
umbrella.
stop you real quick. I think we're seeing the wrong screen here. Could you?
Oh, are you? Hold on, give me a second. Oh, sorry. Oh, is this the right screen now?
Yes, there we go.
Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, so this is the homepage for the Urban Adventure Club meetup group. And like I said, and here's the calendar of our events, just to give you kind of a view of what we offer each month. So for example, today we have a new members orientation. We have a couple of virtual events this week, but also some in-person events. And now we're currently mostly focused on outdoor in-person events. So moving on to the pro dashboard. So this is the list of the groups that currently are under Urban Adventure Club. So I've started one for San Francisco, one for the East Bay, and one for Silicon Valley. So that's the newest group, and so the least number of members. And recently I took over another group in the Bay Area. So another friend of mine who is the organizer for that group is moving on, wanting to do other things. So then I took over that group. And so we'll be using that to also bring in more members for Urban Adventure Club. So I will go. Also, the analytics page is quite useful. So this is some of the numbers for the club. So I can see, most importantly, the one thing I look for is membership growth and RSVP growth. So as you can see, membership growth was fairly steady over 2021, except that in December, there was a big drop off. A lot of it due to the holidays, a lot of it due to the current conditions. But the thing is, those numbers are really helpful when I see, oh, how come this event isn't getting as many people as it normally does? Or how come overall people aren't really being so active? And I look over here, I can see that overall, that's just a trend across all the groups. So it's not really a fault of a event or organizer. It's really just in general, people in December were a lot less active. So that's really useful. And also you can see new memberships, new member joining numbers, and also RSVP numbers. These are just kind of gives me an overview of the health of the group. So if things are kind of steady or even improving, then that's great. But if things are going down, then I can look at the event to see, oh, maybe we didn't do enough around this specific hobby, or maybe we can offer something more the next month. And also, another great way to know what to do is using the messaging tools. So I'm not going to show the members' profiles, but then I can just show you quickly the messaging tool. So over here, you can see there are sent messages and new messages. So quickly, I can click all the members in all my meetups groups and then click new message to create an email to all the members. And so this really just saves so much time rather than having to send an email for each group or even send individual messages. I can send one to all my meetup groups at the same time. So that really just saves a lot of time. And I use this for announcing special events or announcing special discounts, or just anything that's sort of a group-wide announcement. I use that for. This is the network. What do you call this, Josh? The network page, or?
Yeah, network profile.
Network profile. So this is the network profile, which is a nice little page, which it shows actually geographically the different groups in the Urban Adventure Club. So we have 3 groups in the Bay Area, 1 in the East Bay and 1 in the South Bay. And also shows kind of just what we're about, some of the upcoming events in person and online, and also a way to get in touch with me if you choose to. And one feature we've been testing out, and this is a new feature that Josh pointed out to me, is the network events. So basically, because I have 4 groups, often we have to post individual events to each group. Now the network events allows us to post one event, well, one virtual event across all the groups. So just, again, it's a time-saving feature, and it just allows us to post more events and then save time doing so. So super helpful. Looking forward to using this more, and we tested out with one event, and that's for tonight. So we'll be hosting that tonight. All right. That's the end of my demo. So
great, thank you so much, Andy.
Yeah.
So we went through these demos relatively quickly, so I just want to invite you both, if you have anything that pops into your head that you feel like also demonstrating, especially as we go through this Q&A section, feel free. You can go ahead and share your screen again and demo, but also no pressure. But I think with that, we have a lot of questions happening here in the Q&A, so I think we might as well get to it. Feel free, folks. I see a lot of general questions about Pro. I'm happy to answer those, but please feel free to ask Nimrod and Andy any other questions about their demos, anything about their groups, even if it's not directly related to Pro. They're just some fantastic organizers here. I want to make sure that our audience gets the full extent of their knowledge. So, okay, let's jump into these questions here. Seeing a lot coming in. So first, I have one for Nimrod. Somebody asked, it's Carl Friedman here, asked, are you using Twilio for SMS invites as well as SendGrid?
So for the time being, we don't use SMS because we don't collect phone numbers at all for members of our community. It really depends on the audience, but I think that in terms of like our specific case of developers, they would find it quite intrusive. So we decided to skip on it, although it's generally speaking, I think it's possible.
Yeah, and you touched on this relatively quickly, but I think I want to dig in a little more. Just something I know from my time at Meetup. The developer community tends to be a very private community. They like to make sure you're not invading their privacy, and they like to feel like you're not marketing heavily to them. And I think that's something I just want to point out, that when you create a group, know who you're marketing to and who you're trying to get to your events, and treat them accordingly. So that's something very smart I think you did, is you make sure that you treat them with a gentle touch when you're talking about your events to them. Okay, let me go on to other questions here. I see a few general ones that I can answer. So Pam Hoffman says, are sponsors only available for Meetup Pro now? Yes, they are a Meetup Pro feature. So I hope somebody, maybe one of my colleagues, could post in the chat a little bit our Help Center article about sponsors so you can learn more about that. Let's see what other questions we have here. Okay. What are some of the best strategies to grow a Meetup group? I recently started 5 groups on Pro. That's from Rick Diamond. So I think Nimrod and Andy, you both will be honestly great at answering that. What are some of the best strategies you use to start growing your groups?
I can go first. Initially, I didn't try so much to grow the groups. It was more about keeping the people who would already join. So I think Meetup does a pretty good job of, when you create a new group, to recommend it to new members or people who are looking around on Meetup. So initially, I just had people joining the groups, and then my goal was to really get to know them, reach out to them, message them, and then see what type of events they wanted to attend. And then when they do attend an event, really try to further that connection, so that give them a reason to come back to another event. So that's sort of how I chose to focus. I didn't really advertise my Meetup group outside of Meetup, but I did talk about it with people I met.
Thank you. Nimrod, any tips from you?
Yeah, so for our case, since it's the first year, so I want to touch upon what was our goal. So our goal was actually super simple. We just wanted to make sure that our Meetup group doesn't die. That was like the goal for year 1. We wanted to be an engaging group of people that are coming together to those monthly events, and we wanted to keep them on top of things. So it involved a lot of trying to build their trust about the events, about how we curate them. It was a lot about giving them options to express their voice, and as to like what's going to be what are the themes that are going to be in the next events, and so on and so forth. And it was a lot around that not necessarily to grow the number of people. And I think that after 3 or 4 events, when we got things right, so we started seeing people inviting others, which is, in my opinion, the most powerful form of growth, where just there's word of mouth, there's just recommendation from one person to another. And this is what worked for us. In our case, we also have our own product, which has traction, and this is where we can expose the fact that we have monthly meetups outside of meetup.com, but we, like Andy said, we're not using any type of paid or external platform to try and grow the group.
Well, I would add one more thing. I think initially it's important to have a good match with your audience. So you want to have a group that's doing things that people actually want to do. So in the San Francisco Bay Area, one of the most popular things to do is hiking, right? So for me, including hiking as one of the events was critical, right? Because that would draw the most number of people, but also, things like food, going to restaurants, going out to bars, those are also super popular activities. So if I included those things, then people would naturally be drawn to those. That really helps initially.
Yeah, super helpful. Okay, thank you both. I feel like there's a lot of great strategies that you both covered there. All right, another question for both of you. We can do Andy first and then Nimrod. How many reminder emails do each of you send out before an event?
So it depends on I think Meetup naturally sends a reminder message, right? So then mostly rely on that, but then I use the comments as a way to remind people who have registered. I think the comments is less intrusive. I don't think people want emails with every event that they're signed up for. So I think using the comments and using other ways of messaging gets the job done.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Meetup does send an automatic reminder both 6 days and 1 day before each of your events. So yeah, I think using different types of communication is really helpful.
And so, like I mentioned earlier, we do use tools like Facebook Messenger. So for smaller events that don't have that many people, we do use the group chat function. And so that's another way of doing it that's less intrusive than email.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess that in that sense, we're a little bit more spammy. So we send, usually it's 3 email reminders. One is an invitation. The second one is like, in case you missed it, email, just to make sure that whoever wanted to sign up and forgot that they'll sign up. And then an email once the event starts. And then there are like the meetup emails that are being sent. Again, in our case, we found out that a lot of our community members, they filter out emails that are not from providers that they follow. So it was really helpful, to send out events emails from our own domain. So yeah, this is like what worked for us. But another thing that I want to emphasize here is that getting the emails right and getting the messaging right is an art, right? And the best way to do it is to A/B test your messaging. If you're not familiar with the concept of A/B testing, so I highly recommend looking it up. And some of the email marketing platforms, they allow for you to A/B test the headline, for instance. So if you want to optimize the open rates, that's a great way to do it. And you can optimize the type, like the different content in the email and so on and so forth. So that also really helps us from one month to another to increase our conversion rates and to bring more people to our events.
Yeah, that's great. And even I think if you're not using an email tool that lets you do A/B testing, it's not quite as scientific, but just trying different things every time you have an event, trying slightly different ways of communicating, that can be a slower but still effective way to figure out what works.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Another question for both of you. Eric asked, how do you monetize your events? And I'll ask on top of that, if you don't really monetize your events, what's the other way that your events really contribute to your business model?
So my strategy initially was to have a subscription-based model. So which meant that eventually I would charge a membership dues for the members. And that was another good reason I picked Meetup, because Meetup at that point did allow that function and many others didn't. So initially I had most of my events for free, but then I would mention to the members that eventually this is moving to that model. And then when it eventually came time to do that and I charged the membership dues, some members were not happy with it because they wanted to do free events. That's totally fine. But I had plenty of members who were happy with it because they were getting a lot of value and they saw the time and effort I was putting into the groups. And so they're happy to support the company and so on. And then later on, we started doing more and bigger events. And then those events have fees attached to those, especially to compensate the organizers who do host those events. So it's a combination for us of membership dues and also event fees. That's how we monetize.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance. I think every organizer learns, and you have to keep communicating with your members and figure out what's going to work so to keep you afloat and to help you grow your business, and what's going to work for them to keep wanting to come to the events. So yeah, thanks for sharing your story. I think it's very useful for people to see how you made those decisions.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest struggles for a lot of new meetup organizers is if to charge and then how much to charge. I think that's a really good conversation to have with your members rather than try to decide for yourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Nimrod, what about you?
So we're a free community. We don't have any subscription or any kind of paid element to it. And the way it helps us is in various forms. So first, it's really about giving back to the community, and it's one program out of several programs that we're doing to enrich our community beyond what they can get through the tool that we build. So when we see them empowered and when we see them sharing insights that they learn from the events, this is what makes the biggest impact, because all of a sudden other people ask like, hey, what's this event about? Who's organizing it? What's daily dev? And this really helps us grow in an organic manner, in a value first manner. I would even say that's just invaluable. That's one thing. And the second thing is that our team is also like a bunch of geeks. So we leverage the size of the community to bring speakers that otherwise would have never came to speak in like, not with us, but also not in our events. But right now, when it's big enough, we're able to attract awesome people, really world-class engineers, and to start building relationships with them, which really mean a lot for us as a small business.
Yeah, thank you. Very good insight. I'm going to go ahead and answer a few questions. There's a few general ones just about Meetup Pro, so I'll give you all a little bit of a break, then we'll come back. I see at least one other question for both of you, and I think we probably have some more here. So first from Serena, another question on the email addresses. Do organizers receive email addresses for all members of a Meetup group or only for those who RSVP? So it's only for members who RSVP, and that's only after you've upgraded to Pro as well. So you won't receive the email addresses of members who RSVP'd before you upgrade to Pro. Once you upgrade and you start hosting events, you'll start to receive the email addresses of members who RSVP to those events. And excuse me, just to clarify again, the reason that we have it set up like that because members are informed that they're going to be sharing their email address with you when they RSVP to events in your Pro network. So I think that's just something good to clarify. If you need more info about that, I think probably one of my colleagues can share more info about that in the chat as well. All right, so another question here from Pam. I have 6 meetup groups now. Is there a limit to how many meetups I can add to Meetup Pro? Can I post to all of them at once to say for my live Friday night show? Pam, I definitely want to hear more about your live Friday night show. That sounds fun, whatever it is. You can have as many meetup groups as you would like with Meetup Pro, unlimited amount of meetup groups. The pricing is charged per group, so it's a little different than what we call our standard organizer subscription. And we'll share a page where you can see more about that towards the end of the event. As far as your second question, can you post to all of them at once for one of your events? If you have an online event, we have that network events feature that Andy briefly showed. And basically that allows you to schedule an event just like you'd schedule any other event, but you can select multiple groups to schedule it in at once. But the important thing to call out there is it is only for online events right now. We don't have that for in-person events at the moment. I believe I saw another question that was also about whether you can do recurring events across all your groups. We also don't have that implemented with network events. So it's only for events you schedule one at a time and only for online events. Thank you for asking that, Pam. And one more I'm going to answer here before I throw it back to Nimrod and Andy. So Hector says, does Meetup Pro support an API that allows me to automatically import or export LinkedIn contacts? So that's a feature that also comes with Meetup Pro is our API. We recently launched the GraphQL API. I'm going to post a link in the chat here to learn more about that if you're interested. I'm not sure about the LinkedIn contacts part of that question, but our documentation that I just posted the link to there, you should be able to figure out yourself what you can do with that API. And if you have further questions, you can contact us as well. So let's see. I think I have another question here for Nimrod and Andy. Let me just find it again. Yes. So Viv asked, how much time and help are the speakers, so Nimrod and Andy, spending or giving to get the groups to the point that you've gotten them to? How much time have you invested in these?
Countless hours. I've been working on this for over 6 years, so it's quite a hard question to answer. But yeah, initially I treated it because I treated it as a company and I wanted to make it into a company. I was working on it full time. So this was after I had left my job and I was looking for a project to focus on, and this became it. And basically, I worked more than I did at my full time job to launch it and make it successful.
Thanks. What about you, Nimrod?
So it's really difficult to answer because most of the heavy lifting was done in the first 2 or 3 events, where we had to come up and to actually learn how to run a successful event, which by now I'm not sure that we're running successful events, to be honest. When I first got the contact from meetup.com, my imposter syndrome was like this, like, oh my God, are we getting invited to speak in one of their events? We're just running this thing for a year. So the big heavy lifting was in the first 3 events. We had to figure out how to market our events, how to set them up, how to create all the creatives and the graphics and the themes, and to bring the speakers. Once we got the first 3 events more or less right, then it was about duplicating the same recipe over the next 9 events, which was way less work. So there's definitely a lot of room for optimism that the big investment is only in the beginning, and later on, like if you want to scale it, obviously it's gonna take a lot of effort if you want to go to the scale that Andy's talking about. But in our case, it was more about duplicating events over time.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And I think, a lot of people use Meetup Pro, like you two use it to support their small businesses and help grow their small businesses. And anybody who's running a small business is going to be spending a lot of time on like every aspect of it in order to get off the ground. So I think Meetup is no exception to that when you're using it in this way to support your small business. It's very insightful. So thank you both. All right, another one here from Pam. So Pam says, how do you keep on top of people who actually want to participate and don't just join to observe? And I think what she's trying to get at there is, we all know when you host a group or when you organize a group, you're going to have members who are very active, very involved, and you're going to have some members who are more reticent to join events. And it's really important to keep in touch with those involved members. So what do you both do? What are your strategies for keeping in touch with those people?
I think going back to something that Nimrod mentioned earlier, it's ultimately about building trust. It's about showing members that you are consistent, that you will be here for at least the next few months, that you're not just going to host events and go away. And I have had so many stories of members who come to me or come to events that go, I've been looking at your club for a year and I just haven't done anything, but today was the day and that I decided to actually come to an event. So that happens all the time. And so I think treat your members as people who might eventually come to your event. So prove to them that you are offering high quality events, that you're doing good, you're offering value. So I do that often through social media. So by sharing photos, videos, content from events, and also getting members to give me reviews on different platforms like Google, Yelp, and Facebook. So all those things build trust over time. And then some people just need a little nudge, right? Or the right timing or the right event, and then they'll come and a switch will click on and they'll join your event.
Yeah, I love that. I'm that kind of member who will kind of lurk on a group for a while and see what the events look like. And it takes me a little more time to get that trust to say, oh wow, this is a really cool event. I've seen they hold other cool events. It seems like it's a really active group, and finally, make the choice to go. So that's very important. Thank you for calling that out. Nimrod, what about you? What kind of strategies do you use?
So I think that my take is that if you manage to build a really small group of people that is attending every event, and that they're showing their presence, and that they express their opinion about how they feel in the meetup group, then it really helps bring other people that are either lurking or just speculating to see if that's good or not. So, and I think that unintentionally, that was one of our secret sauces, was that we had about a group of about 8 or 10 developers that kept attending every event, that they were super active, they were asking a lot of questions, they were participating, they were cheering. So by the time the events were like hundreds of people live, it already looked differently. It was much easier to ignite and spark conversations in those meetups. So that worked really well, and that can be done by just one person that is organizing the meetups. You can find, I think, 5 or 6 people that would be, hardcore into what you're doing.
Yeah, and I want to call out here, I actually that made me think of something that I kind of wanted to mention on that last question I asked about how much time you spend on these things, on upkeeping your meetup groups and expanding them. We also, a lot of successful organizers use leadership teams. So you have those engaged members. One thing you can do is ask them, if they're really engaged with your group, ask them to help you organize it and see if that's something they would be interested in. A lot of folks really just want to be involved in a community, and this is a great way to get them involved and also help you to organize the group and help you to expand it without having to put, even more and more and more time as it gets to be bigger. So just wanted to mention that on top of what both these organizers have mentioned here. Okay, I'm going to go through a couple more questions that seem like general Meetup Pro questions. And then before we end, because we are getting close to the end here, I want to make sure I'm going to throw it back to Nimrod and Andy just to post links to your communities, tell us where we can find you. So please get your links ready to post. Okay, before that, let me answer a few more questions here. So Carl asked, Josh, does Pro allow the organizer to heat map all of the members? No, we don't have a heat map for members. That sounds really cool though. I love that idea. I think I'm imagining something that shows like where the most active members are. I will say on the members page of the Pro dashboard, you can filter by, say, who the most active members are or who the least active members are. I think I saw another question that somebody asked about whether you could contact, say, the least active members of your network. And that's exactly the type of thing that Meetup Pro is designed to do. So from that members page that you saw a little bit of on the Pro dashboard, you can filter by the least active members, people who haven't attended an event in, say, the last 90 days, and then you can email them directly from that dashboard. And it doesn't matter if you have, say, 5, 6 groups, you can email all those members who are not active in your 5 or 6 groups and try to get them re-engaged. And like Andy and Nimrod just mentioned, a lot of them may have just been, not quite clicking on things, not paying attention for a little bit, but you can draw them back in and they can get re-engaged and interested if it's the right event at the right time for them. Okay, let me see what other questions we have here. I know I saw another good one. Just give me a second. So Hector asked here, how can Meetup Pro help me identify and acquire sponsors for my meetups? I just want to say we've done this sort of thing in the past, Hector, and it's something that's kind of on our minds still right now, but we don't have an active program in place to help with that at the moment. I would say just contact local businesses and contact also even larger businesses who are aligned with what the mission of your groups is about. Show them using that analytics data from a Meetup Pro subscription. You can show them what's going on with your groups, how engaged people are. You can convince them that you have a good value for them. And you can also work out with them some terms of what you might offer. So you might mention them at all your events. You might put them in that sponsor section on your group page. There's a lot of different strategies. This is something that takes a lot of hands-on work, but we do see it being worth it for a lot of people to help cover the cost of their organizer subscription. So great question. Just wanted to address that. I think, okay, we only have a few minutes left. I want to make sure you both get a closing period to just post your links, talk a little bit more about where we can find you. So let's go with Andy first. Where can people find more about the Urban Adventure Club?
I'm putting the links in the chat. So it's just at urbanadventureclub.com. Also, you can just search for Urban Adventure Club on Meetup, and you should be able to find it. There are the group in San Francisco, one in the East Bay, and one in Silicon Valley. Just wanted to give a word of encouragement to all the Meetup organizers that it is not easy, but then if you keep working at it and you keep offering value and building your community, you will be rewarded at the end.
Thank you. That's great. I was going to ask also for like your best closing word of encouragement as well. So Nimrod, if you could also tell us where we can find you and also any words of encouragement or advice you have.
Right, cool. So I'm going to post my links here as well. You can find us either in the link that I sent, which is to our Meetup group called the Monthly Dev, or you can just type daily.dev on Google and find our product. And if you're a developer, we'd love to see you there. And my word of encouragement is that it's really about making small wins, but being consistent on those small wins, and eventually like it will compound and you will find yourself with the substantial community. And so have faith, be consistent, small wins.
Great. Thank you. And I hope everybody here takes a look at both of their pages, considers joining their groups or attending an event. Okay, with that, I think we're going to pull the slides back up and close this out. I just want to say what we thought was going to be most useful for you folks here today is going to be to see some hands-on of how organizers use Meetup Pro. But I know we didn't do a lot of talking about exactly what Meetup Pro is, all the features that come with it. So you can learn more about that by going to this link. This is like the long version, but you can also just go to meetup.com/pro. We give a 30-day free trial that you can start right from that page. There's a big free trial button. I encourage you to just go check it out yourself if you're an existing organizer on Meetup, or if you're just a member who's interested in starting a group. Check it out and see if you can find a way to build up your small business using Meetup Pro. With that, I believe we have one more slide here. Yes. So you can keep connected with Meetup CEO David Siegel. This is a new podcast we have, actually not so new anymore. We have a lot of great episodes built up now. You can listen to them and subscribe at meetuppodcast.com, or you can scan that QR code to get there. Also, as a reminder, you can view a recap of this event in a few days. We're going to have the recording up at meetup.com/blog. That's our Community Matters blog. So if you want to share it with a friend, or you just want to review a little bit of what Nimrod and Andy talked about here, go ahead. That'll be up. Usually, I think it takes maybe 3 days or so, and you can find it on our blog. You can also subscribe to the blog if you want to get regular emails about this sort of thing to your inbox. So with that, I think we're going to close it out. Thank you again for joining us, to Nimrod and Andy. Please give a big virtual round of applause. I really loved hearing your stories today, and I hope we can have you back on soon.
Thank you, Josh. Pleasure to
Thanks,
speak to
Josh.
everyone.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, everybody, and thanks again for joining. Take care.
Bye-bye.